It's time for
DodgerHeads. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight on this beautiful Sunday night by Anthony Witrado, here to break down what was the only Dodgers win of the series, Anthony. But guess what? Good news. We're doing the postgame for Sunday's show. So they won today. That's the good news.
Yeah, yesterday would have been quite the show in a different way. But yeah, I'm glad we're coming off a win. That's always a positive for us. Yeah, let's get back on the right side of things, especially going into this coming week here. All right.
Yep, absolutely. We got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we're going to talk today's game and the GOAT Clayton Kershaw having his best performance of 2025. We're going to talk about the Dodgers offense breaking out of a bit of a funk as well. We're going to do stock up, stock down on some big name players going in different directions. We are going to have the Hyeseong Kim conversation, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk Padres preview, Tony Gonsolin injury, and of course, we will get to your questions. So thank you to everybody that is joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Thank you to everybody listening after the fact via podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google. We appreciate all of you. But Anthony, let's start with the game that we saw today. The Dodgers come into this game hitting 1 for 25 with runners in scoring position on Friday and Saturday. Today, they scratched together 7 runs, but not without stress, because in the first inning, in perfect fashion, it was a leadoff double with the best 3 hitters, not named Shohei Ohtani, due up, and they go 0 for 3 to start. Thankfully, it got better from there, but holy smokes, was this a rough offensive weekend, and was this 7-run breakout, if we can call it that, desperately needed?
Yeah, it was needed considering, I think, what they had done the previous 2 games. Even in the series before this, things weren't great against the Mets. So, yeah, it was nice to see them sort of start to, show signs of breaking out a little bit. But look, the offense has been a problem for a little while now. I think a big part of why this team hasn't lived up to its potential has been some of the ups and downs of the offense. With that said, the overall issues with this team have not been scoring. They've been on the pitching side for a variety of reasons, mainly injuries, which has led to just a complete taxing of the bullpen along with their injuries. So that's for starters. But the offense, I think, was expected to provide a certain cushion, a certain margin for error for the pitching staff, whether it be injuries or performance or whatever. The offense was supposed to be sort of the saving grace of, you know what, even if we have a rough patch on that side of the ball, the offense is still always going to be good enough, even if relatively healthy, that they'll be able to carry this team, even with those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Those issues have reared their heads on the pitching side, but the offense hasn't been nearly consistent enough to sort of buoy this team above water for the most part. They kind of got their chin up above it, but it's a constant fight to stay above. And so I think part of it is we just didn't expect certain things to be going on for this long. Michael Conforto, right? Max Muncy's struggles until, kind of recently when he's turned it around. Mookie Betts not being good, but not great. Just all of those sorts of things that we don't need to rehash right now. But any time that they show signs of hope at this point, it's like, okay, maybe this is the game that everybody starts to turn it around and everyone starts to get on the right side of things, because, there's a big series coming up. And, when you lose a couple of games because you can't score, and look, we can call, hey, Benny Caps, blew it, or in the previous days or weeks, Tanner Scott has blown it or whatever. Yeah. The point of the matter is, in all of those games, the offense had multiple opportunities to put a bigger cushion on the board, and they didn't do it.
Yeah. And I was feeling that I was like watching the first inning of this one. Again, Ohtani leads off with a double. They're 1 for 25 with runners in scoring position coming in. And you're like, all right, it's Mookie, it's Freddie, and it's Teoscar. Like, surely something is going to get going here. And to be fair to Mookie and Freddie, they both hit baseballs 102 and a half and 103 miles an hour. Expected batting average is over 700, just right at dudes. Teoscar does nothing. And I'm like, we're not doing this again with Clayton Kershaw on the mound, no less. It's like, can we get this guy some support? And thankfully, the second rolls around, and it's the same story. First and second with no out after back-to-back singles. Conforto flies out to left field, and you're like, I can't believe this is happening. But Tommy Edman, Hyeseong Kim breakthrough, 3-0. The Dodgers open up a lead. Tommy Edman extends it 4-0, and we go from there. Because the flip side, we've spent all this time talking about the offense, but I mean, we've buried the lead here, Anthony. It was Clayton Kershaw Day, and some of us still celebrate Clayton Kershaw Day, Anthony Witrado. I don't know, other people have moved on to other lovers, but some of us have stayed true to the GOAT and Clayton Kershaw. What did you see from Kershaw? The line is 5 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, 12 whiffs, and I'm giving you a hard time. I know you haven't left Kershaw bandwagon, but this was vintage Kershaw, 7 strikeouts from a guy that didn't seem like he had the swing and miss still.
Yeah, I've seen that word thrown around. It's been on social media today after people have posted this stat line, vintage Kershaw.
Yeah.
I could not disagree more.
Okay.
And this is not to say that he wasn't good, but let's not forget what vintage Kershaw looked like.
Yeah.
Vintage Kershaw was you were surprised when anyone got on base against him. This version of Kershaw, 6 hits, no walks, which was that was pretty impressive. Yeah. But he had more than one pitch working today. He had like 3 working today.
Yeah.
And he had a really good command and command meaning the difference for me between command and control. And I've picked this up over the years from talking to pitchers about this is control is like, I want to hit this quadrant of the zone. I can do that. Command, but like maybe your fastball is pretty straight or, whatever. The command part of it is that you're hitting that quadrant or that third or whatever, and there's run or there's tail or there's whatever. Like people, they're making the ball move, and he had some of that more than I saw in the last start for him, and more in the last couple of starts.
Yeah.
So I thought that was important for him. He's showing that when he has that stuff, he's going to be able to get guys out. He's going to be able to get some swing and miss. Vintage Kershaw could bring his C game and have 1 pitch working.
Yeah. And
put up 7 innings with 1 run and 8 Ks or something like that.
Yeah.
This is the current version of good Kershaw.
Yeah. And it's probably, we're using the word vintage to mean 2 different things. I don't think anybody who said vintage Kershaw was like, oh man, this is prime Kershaw. This is exactly what it looked like. It's a guy turning back a clock and showing us a side of him, a version of himself that you and I know from being on shows like this, a lot of people just gave up on ever seeing again. And I am not taking the victory lap and saying pencil this guy in for the rest of the season. But I am saying he clearly still has the ability when the curveball is working, the slider is working, and the fastball is effective. He clearly still has the ability against a very good St. Louis Cardinals team to be effective and to limit damage.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. And you're right about like the people who have kind of hopped off, I guess, you could say, because the last time this guy was healthy, he was a quality starter.
Every time he's been healthy.
Every time he's been healthy throughout his career, that's a really good point. He has been a sub like 2.5 kind of guy.
Yeah.
For an ERA. I think this version is probably no different. This is, I think, what we're seeing is him sort of getting the rust knocked off a little bit. Outside of that first start, he's got a sub-3 ERA again. Shocker. He's the guy. He is still that kind of guy. And he's learned how to pitch without all the other tools that he used to have 10 years ago. Yeah. And he's still able to get guys out. I think you look and like the difference between then and now, though, is like when the trouble does come, I think before it was like, this team's still going to be lucky if they can scratch a run across the board, even though they kind of are pushing him toward the ropes. Whereas this one, a leadoff guy gets on or something like that, and you're gripping the bar a little tighter in the cart. And he did a really good job of sort of pitching around that stuff today. He's still good enough to do that, even against pretty good lineups, I think. That's why I think, considering all of the injuries, going forward, he is going to be a critical piece of this rotation. And a start like today goes a long way in one, giving all of us hope, but in also like seeing like, look, man, they can be okay if they can maintain where their health is currently, and he continues to kind of give them these kinds of outings.
Yeah. And it's interesting. They mentioned this on the broadcast. This is the second time this season that he has pitched on 4 days rest, which is what he has spent his whole career doing. And those 2 starts were the best 2 starts that we've seen him, not counting the perfect game that he had going, or the no-hitter, excuse me, he had going against the Mets for 2 innings. But it was 4 days later that he pitched against the Guardians, 5 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned run. Tell me if that stat line sounds familiar. Right. Then they stretch him out a little bit against the Mets. He struggles, and then 4 days, 5 innings, 1 earned run yet again. So to be clear, neither Anthony or I, who are both big Kershaw fans and believe in his ability to make an impact this year, nobody is saying, let me introduce you to 1.9 ERA Clayton Kershaw. Yeah. Like we've been consistent that if he can keep an ERA starting with a 3, then that's going to have exceeded expectations for most people. And if it starts with a 3 and has a number less than 5 right after it, then that's a huge victory and a huge win. Now, today, I think gives you a little bit of optimism, a little bit of hope that, I don't know. I mean, maybe we've undersold what Kershaw is possible, and maybe a 3.2 ERA is in there somewhere. I'm skeptical for the reasons you just said, because when he gets the runner on second and we know he's going to rely on contact and hoping that it's soft contact, that's just a recipe for things being able to go sideways, even if it is soft contact. We saw that today. A couple seeing eye singles that get through, and all of a sudden you're like, how are we doing this? So I think this was encouraging for Kershaw. I still would never bet the over 4.5 on strikeouts for any Kershaw start for the rest of the season. But it's encouraging to know that even if this is every 2 or 3 starts, that he can tap back into something like this. That's the good news here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that he's got these starts in him.
Yeah.
Like, let's say he makes, over the course of the season now, let's say he makes 18 to 20 starts. I think he's very capable of half of those starts looking something like this.
Yeah.
Like, I still think he's that good. It's just, you're going to get a clunker in there in one of those other starts, and then just like, okay, probably in the rest of those starts. And so, even with that, I think, considering who he is and where he's at in his career and what the Dodgers, I think, came into the season expecting from him.
Yeah.
It's hard to ask for much more than that. He's doing his job right now. Yeah. I have no doubt that if he stays healthy, he can continue to do this.
Yeah, you mentioned, 16 2/3 since his first start of the season, and he has allowed 5 earned runs over that stretch. So if you can get that kind of performance from Clayton Kershaw, even close to it moving forward, then it's hard not to be thrilled about that. Some other numbers from Kershaw's start real quick. I mentioned he had 12 whiffs, 32% of the time guys swung at his pitches. They swung and missed. That's an elite number. He also had 15 called strikes. So 33% of the time it was either a called strike or a whiff, which again, that's a high end number for Clayton Kershaw. I am not expecting, I want to be clear, as the most pro Kershaw person probably alive, other than maybe his family members, I am not expecting this from Clayton Kershaw, but I have said consistently that as time goes on, he's going to improve. Like the version we saw on his first start of the season was not the version of Clayton Kershaw that we were expected to get used to. And so if the ultimate landing spot for Clayton Kershaw is like a 5 innings, 2 earned run type guy, who wouldn't be thrilled about that type of performance from Clayton Kershaw?
Yeah, I'm taking it. If you tell me that, hey, you're not going to get any more from him, but this is what you're going to get. Yeah. Where do we sign right now?
Yeah. And again, it's going to look different, but it's so interesting because if you compare this to the other guys that are in the rotation, obviously Yamamoto is in a class of his own. We know Dustin May has velocity and stuff, but we've also ridden the Dustin May roller coaster. And so if you gave me a choice today, I would probably still say I trust Dustin May a little bit more to go get me a win than Clayton Kershaw. But a week and a half ago, I think I was crazy for suggesting that those two guys might be comparable. Mm-hmm. And yet I think moving forward, Anthony, if you told me that the gap between those two was minuscule, like 0.2 in the ERA category or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that'd be a fair sort of expectation. Like it would be a fair place to sort of set the bar.
Yeah.
And I think with both of those guys now, it's just like, okay, these are acceptable kinds of performances based on where you're both at in your careers, and all context included. Now, can you just keep going out and doing it?
Yep. And we're going to talk Gonsolin injury later. Boy, do they need Clayton Kershaw to keep going out and doing it. And every 4 days of rest in between would be even better, the way that this pitching rotation is setting up. A couple other things about Kershaw real quick. It was reported after the game that the Cardinals showed the Matt Adams home run that Kershaw gave up a million years ago multiple times. Kershaw called it, quote, a little bush league, and also added, but I didn't expect anything less from these guys, so it's no worries. Good. Motivate the guy. Like that's never backfired on anybody talking crap about Clayton Kershaw. So please, hopefully the next team that he faces, hopefully they have some video that they can run somewhere just to piss Kershaw off, because that doesn't seem to work all that well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to like when they were showing this and how it was, like what the context was for it. I guess the fact that he noticed it or was told about it is also kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
Clayton Kershaw has always kind of had rabbit ears, which is not a bad thing. Like, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like a ton of greats have, Barry Bonds, a ton of the greats in all of their sports have sort of had the same kind of thing. I didn't think it was Bush League. Like the Dodgers would do stuff like that too. Every team would do stuff like that. Like
the other thing is, as we count Clayton Kershaw's strikeouts, the other report that came out, he passed Zach Greinke today, and Kershaw was mentioned. This was told him after. He said repeatedly he does not care. He's not thinking about, I should say, the strikeout milestone. But when he was told he passed Greinke, he said, "I like that one. That's good. I need to beat Zach. That's good. Hopefully he finds out that I beat him." And he texts me. So Kershaw's got that in his bag as well, passing Zach Greinke in the strikeout column. A couple super chats here. $320 super chat. We appreciate you. Couple trends on offense I see. One, as a whole, really having a hard time hitting off speed. 2, Shohei hits a lot of solo home runs. And 3, when Mookie gets hot, Freddie struggles, or Teo struggles, for example, just inconsistent. What do you make of these 3 observations? What jumps out to you the most from the super chat, Anthony?
It's the off-speed stuff. I think that's the most, that's the realest trend here. The Shohei hits a lot of solo home run stuff. Well, 1, he hits leadoff homers too, so there's no one on base. And 2, he's hitting in front of the bottom of the order, which on any team isn't going to be a great on base part of the order. It is what it is. They're trying to get the guy as many at bats as they can. So I'm not that worried about that part of it. And then the Mookie gets hot and the other guy struggles stuff. It's sort of just how lineups work in general, for all time. It's when they all get. You don't even need everybody hot. You just need everyone not struggling like that, and then this offense becomes like one of the best ever potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the off-speed stuff, because teams have learned if you feed this lineup fastballs, they're going to feast, and they're too disciplined for the most part, typically at the plate, to give you a ton of chase. And so when they are chasing off-speed stuff and it's not in the zone, that's really where they're only, as a team, their only blue spots are, their only cold spots are.
Yeah. It's fair. And we're going to talk Mookie, Freddie, Teo here in just a little bit. But I don't know if that's a repeated theme, but it's definitely something that's happening right now for the Dodgers. So we appreciate the super chat. And the off-speed one, to your point, just something to keep an eye on, something to monitor. Maybe it's something teams have adjusted against the Dodgers. Maybe it is something they're struggling with. But we'll keep an eye on that. LLM with the super chat. Will the Dodgers trade for a starter at the deadline? I reposted the Ken Rosenthal video from before the season where he said they had too much pitching and that they would probably trade from it, laughing about it. But what do you think? Do you think the Dodgers are going to need to make a move, Anthony, for a starter at the deadline? Or is the timeline of Glasnow and Ohtani and Snell and Sasaki potentially, are those timelines going to line up in such a way where those are going to be the trade deadline acquisitions?
Yeah, I think they would like it if that's the case. I think right now the only one of those guys I'm confident in returning is like anytime soon is Snell. It seems like he's on a good timeline for that. But with Glasnow and Roki, I think, very possible they both come back. Is Roki even in the postseason rotation, though? I'm not too sure about that. So I'm not sure how much that one matters in term just outside of like giving them innings during the regular to finish out the second half. Glasnow is the question mark for obvious reasons. We've talked about that before. I don't think they go out and get a big name if that person is just a rental. Or Andrew Friedman has notoriously run away from overpaying for those kinds of arms in the past, those kinds of players in the past. And sometimes fans don't like that, but he's not willing to spend that kind of capital on a guy who's with the team on a short-term basis. So if I had to say right now, my answer would be no. I don't think they go out and get that kind of arm. I think they go and get help, but I don't think they go out and get that frontline kind of starter unless somebody falls into their lap somehow.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are lining this up. I've said this consistently, to have those guys coming back at a point where they're ready for the postseason, but they're limiting the amount of stress that gets added to their arms. I'm not saying they're faking injuries right now. I think they're slow playing the bringing back of guys, which are two different things. And so that's why, look, will the Dodgers trade for A? Maybe, but I agree with you. I don't think there's a difference maker from a starting pitching perspective that they're going to go out and acquire unless, huge asterisk here, unless they get a bunch of bad news on the injury front. Like even Tony Gonsolin, who we're going to talk about later. We're not positive he's going to be out for, multiple months. He might be. Forearm inflammation or whatever is not great, soreness. But right now, the expectation appears to be that Snell, Ohtani, and Glasnow are all going to be pitching for the Dodgers at some point this season. And you mix in the guys, Yamamoto, who's still there, Kershaw, May, maybe Gonsolin, maybe Sasaki. Like, who knows if Landon Knack or Justin Robleski figures something out and becomes productive. But I just think the Dodgers are going to be able to have enough. Now, I sound like Ken Rosenthal as I say that, so maybe I'm an idiot. But keep in mind also, and I think you kind of are alluding to this, you only really need maybe 4 starting pitchers come postseason time. And so if the Dodgers feel like they have 4.5 guys that they could trust in a postseason series at the deadline, then they might just take their chances with that. We've seen them do that before, but we know Andrew Friedman doesn't want to shop at the deadline if he doesn't have to. Now, Jedi Engineers got a super chat here asking if Freddie Peralta with the Brewers is available, what would you be willing to part with to get him? Peralta, 2.92 ERA this season. He's a 3.72 ERA for his career, 29-year-old right-hander. 1 more year left on his contract, Anthony, a club option for $8 million. So super affordable there.
Yeah.
The underlying metrics, I would say, are good, but not great. A lot of like 65th to 81st percentile numbers in there, which is fine. Yeah, it's not a terrible player, but obviously cost controlled for another year, affordable, $8 million. If the Brewers were willing to move on Freddie Peralta, knowing that a guy like this doesn't come cheap at 29 years old, would you be willing to pay up?
Not unless they get some really bad news.
Okay.
I think that they would be fine without him if these guys come back.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting Gonsolin. We'll talk about that later. But assuming that like the big guys that we just talked about, Snell, Glasnow, Roki, Ohtani, and then maybe you throw in guys like Sheehan.
And I forgot to mention Emmett Sheehan because he's due back pretty soon, and he's a pretty damn good guy when he was healthy.
Then I think they're fine. They're fine. And I think that a guy like Peralta, if the Brewers fall flat here going into the deadline, he's going to be one of those coveted arms, and there's going to be a bidding war for him. And Andrew Friedman tends to sort of stay away from those if there is just not an absolute desperate need.
Yeah.
Or unless he'll pay if he can get more in return than just that player.
Yeah.
So like maybe he gets him and, I don't know, an infielder or an outfielder, something like that is in a position of need. Then maybe he makes a play there. But I think if it's just Peralta, I think he probably stays away.
Yeah. I'm with you. Again, this could all change if we find out 2 weeks from now that Glasnow's done for the season, Gonsolin's done for the season, Sasaki's shut down for 3, who knows? We're hoping none of those things come true, but I just don't think I think the Dodgers have spent so much money and so many resources on the Snells and the Glasnows and the Yamamotos of the world so that they do not have to pay 2x prices at the deadline.
He's come right out and said it.
Yeah.
This is why we loaded up the way we did, including in the bullpen. You know, the reason why Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates and Blake Trinan and all those guys are still there, or that they were signed, is because he has said, I don't want to have to go out at the deadline and overpay to improve this club. I want this club to be basically where it's at, you know, going into that portion of the season, and not have to worry about that. When everyone gets injured, that obviously changes that kind of thinking sometimes. But if they are slow playing these guys, which I'm with you, I think that there are certain cases, Ohtani, Snell, probably Roki, where they are doing that. I think they're doing it for the reason so that they don't have to go make that blockbuster kind of deal at the deadline.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Thank you for the super chats. Again, those help us keep the lights on. So we appreciate those, and we'll try our best to stop what we're doing and get to those questions as soon as we can. So again, thank you to the 3 folks that submitted those. Any last notes, Anthony, from this series against the Cardinals, the game we saw today? Again, we talked about Clayton Kershaw's performance on the offensive side of things. Not really any standout performers. Will Smith and Max Muncy and Tommy Edman each had 2 hits. I guess Tommy Edman qualifies as a standout performer because he gets 2 separate RBI hits. He finishes with a run and 3 RBIs in this one. Muncy has a pair of runs, Smith a pair of runs. But, you know, other than that, nothing especially exciting. Trevino was shaky. Dreyer was shaky. Yates was shaky. Tanner Scott continued to be good. I guess we could talk Michael Kopech making his return. 1 inning, 1 hit, no walks, 1 strikeout, 7 out of 9 pitches in the strike zone. To me, that's probably the most important number on that line, right? Other than 0 earned runs.
Yeah, no walks. Stuff looked good coming out of his hand. I thought that he was probably the other story aside from Kershaw today. I positive there, positive with Kershaw, positive with Scott again. Other than that, though, I think it was just good win. Get out of there. You know, the momentum is evened out a little bit, and you push into this next week.
All right, let's do a little stock up and stock down. We got 4 hitters on the agenda. 2 positive, 2 negative is the plan. But let's talk Mookie Betts. We recorded a video last Thursday that went up on Friday on this channel talking about the fact that Mookie Betts had not been to his normal standards. And the genesis of that video, where there were some people who were questioning Mookie Betts and questioning whether or not he was still in a position to be an excellent player, a top 15 player like he has been as recently as last season. He was compared to a man that many, myself included, would say is a fairly insulting comparison. Well, since then, Anthony, 9 for 16 with 2 doubles, a home run. He has reached an 11 of 18 plate appearances. It's a small sample size. It's 4 games. The power, which some people have been especially concerned about until the home run today, you could make the case, even as he's continued to get hits, has not been there. But what have you seen anything different from Mookie in the last 4 games, or is this just, as to be expected, things evening themselves out for a guy who's still one of the best players in the league?
Yeah, I haven't noticed anything like obvious in his approach or anything like that. Maybe a little less chase. He's one of the guys, and you could say this about a lot of people, but him especially, when he goes bad, you see him sort of chasing, especially that kind of that low and out of the zone pitch. Yeah. He will go after that a lot. I guess maybe he's cut that back a little bit, but nothing obvious. I think some of this is just like he's hitting the hard ball. He's hitting the ball hard again, and it's now starting to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, again, a couple of the doubles, at least one of the doubles, I should say, was an absolute rope over the center fielder's head. The home run today was a bomb. And as many people pointed out when we recorded that video, like when you lose 25 pounds, you're not losing belly fat necessarily right off the get-go. So for him to rebuild muscle it takes as every one of us knows, it takes longer to build muscle than it does to lose muscle. And so for Mookie to get this going, we'll see. It's 4 games. He might go back to being, an above average, but not excellent player again. But I think you and I are on the same side of things, which these 4 games are probably closer to a reflection of who we think Mookie Betts will be moving forward than, the month and a half or 2 months prior.
And we've texted about this offline. I think we are in the same boat here. He is going to continue to be an all-star caliber player.
Yeah.
And I think now that he's a shortstop, his value is going to go up in that way, just in general, because he's playing now a premium position and he's playing it well. I think the talk about, finding a long-term solution, or I'm sorry, like a near-term solution at shortstop, that guy's there. He's there now. He's at this point in his career, I think, a better shortstop than he is a right fielder.
Yeah. And he's been good at shortstop.
Yes. And considering the other options who you have to play those corner outfields, mainly talking about Pages, when everything is when everyone's healthy, essentially, he's playing elite caliber defense in right field or in left field, wherever he ends up being in the corners. So Mookie staying at short is fine with me. He continues to be a productive offensive player, like maybe not an MVP candidate, but an all-star caliber player.
Yeah.
He's one of the best shortstops. That makes him one of the best shortstops in baseball.
Yeah.
Now,
and I had to point out, like, Mookie Betts had the second best weighted runs created plus of any Dodger last season. He was their best player in the postseason last year. Had the highest weighted runs created plus OPS, I believe, of any Dodgers hitter for the entirety of the postseason. He had like a 950 OPS. And so it's not like this guy has been cooked for a couple of years and we didn't figure out until just, a week ago. So we'll see if that sticks up. But let's go to, we got Phil with the super chat, a huge super chat. Phil, thank you so much. He says, trade for Walker Buehler. There's not a guy on the roster I trust more in the postseason, and that matters. A lot of faith in Yamamoto too, but we need to bring Walker Buehler back. This would be a guy kind of, I guess, in the mold that we talked about. Walker Buehler would not be a quote-unquote expensive acquisition, I don't think, at the trade deadline, especially the way he has unfortunately been pitching of late. Yeah. Would you be interested in a reunion with Walker effing Buehler?
Again, they'd have to get some really bad news on a couple of different guys, I think, for him to be a realistic target. He has not been good this year with Boston. He was not really good with the Dodgers last year, aside from like some of those memorable performances, including in the postseason and World Series that we saw from him. So I think that clouds some of the judgment on this front with him. Also, he's not been tied to the Dodgers aside from like, hey, here's a guy they could target from Jeff Passan. Like there's been no rumblings that the Dodgers are actually interested in Walker Buehler. So if they're going to go out and do something like that, and it's going to be a cheap option to come in and fill innings, unfortunately, as much as I like Walker Buehler and he'll always live in our hearts as Dodger fans, there's going to be better options, I think, than him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just don't see there being room. Like Kike Hernandez as a guy who's like the 13th guy on the bench, who you're like, that's fine. Just wait until October. And then that guy comes up huge. That's a lot easier to do with an offensive player than it is to do with an arm, whether it's a starter or a bullpen. Like every one of those guys needs to be available and needs to be usable. And unfortunately with Walker Buehler, that'd be a huge bet to take, given the number of guys that already are going to be fighting for those spots. If we were talking about the bullpen looking like it did a week ago and we're heading into the trade deadline and it doesn't sound like it's going to get better, sure, find me a way to get Walker Buehler and see if we can, make him a bullpen arm or something, maybe. But given where the trade deadline is at, like the only way I could see Walker Buehler being a Dodger is if somehow he basically gets waived after the trade deadline and it's a lot closer to the postseason, and that would be the only thing that would make sense. The Red Sox just try and get off his money. But even then, I think we're talking about like a 2% chance of something like that happening. Yeah.
And I think there was a reason why they didn't go after him, with any vigor in the offseason, because I think they sort of knew that they didn't want, they were kind of done with that, with, all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Stock down. Couple guys. Freddie Freeman is one of them. Sometimes, Anthony, I go and look for numbers and say, how has a guy looked in the last 4 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days? And I'm like, man, I didn't really realize that this guy's been this bad. Freddie Freeman is not that guy. 1 for 17 dating back to last Tuesday. That was his walk-off double, by the way. He just looks off in the batter's box. And you can see his visible frustration with himself when he swings at misses and pitches, or when he fouls something off that he feels like he should have been able to get to. So this is both the eye test of his own body language, as well as I said, the last dating back to Tuesday, 1 for 17. Now, to be clear, before anybody accuses me of something I'm not saying, nobody is worried about Freddie Freeman. All this segment is doing is pointing out some recent trends. And Freddie Freeman, the recent trend, Anthony, has not been good.
Yeah, it's been a really small sample. But yeah, you're right. He has looked visibly frustrated. And that stands out when he's a guy who's so even killed, even when things are going well.
Yeah.
So you do notice when he is not getting to balls that he knows that he can get to, or he's fouling pitches off that he thinks he should drive. He's showing some frustration. So I think what that tells me is that he doesn't feel right. Like he knows, something's, whatever it might be, something's off there. I have zero worry that he will find it. He is such a good pure hitter. I'm not worried about him, but yeah, he's a little down right now.
Another guy in the same boat is Teoscar Hernandez. Freeman, I mentioned 1 for 17. Teoscar 2 for his last 32 with 11 strikeouts over that stretch. This one would, if you had asked me just watching the game, hey, who's been worse? I'd say Freddie, again, because the body language has seemed so rough. Teoscar surprises me that it's been this bad for this long because it doesn't jump off the page to me. I don't know if I'm alone in that, Anthony, but is that how your experience of watching Teo has been?
Yeah, I'm with you. I know what you're saying. If you watch him every day and you're just sort of watching from a bird's eye view and you're not really tracking all the numbers in real time, he doesn't seem like he's been that bad. But yeah, he's not been good. A little more concerned about him than Freddie, and that's to say, like, there's not much there. I think he'll figure it out. He's always been a little streaky. I will say, like, at some point, they can probably afford to give him a day or two off.
Yeah.
And maybe give him a little break here. Maybe it's not this next series, but we'll see. It might be. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I'm not overall long-term worried about Teoscar Hernandez figuring this out. But yeah, it's not helping when the offense is inconsistent and you have one of those main cogs struggling.
Well, if he were to get a day off, Anthony, it's interesting you mentioned that because the fourth guy on our list might have something to do with that. That's a gentleman by the name of Hyeseong Kim. Do you want to guess stock up or stock down for this guy, Anthony? Which direction do you think the stock is headed?
Up and to the right?
Up and to the right, as they say. 1 for 2 with a triple and 2 RBIs today. He did come out of the game after smashing his knee into the wall. He didn't bat after that before Kike Hernandez took his spot. So hopefully that was just a defensive replacement kind of a thing. But Kim is now slashing 414, 443, 586 for the season. He looks comfortable. I've admitted defeat on this one multiple times. The Dodgers fixed something, and he is an anomaly as far as guys coming over from Korea and finding success. Nobody is suggesting that he's going to have a 400, 400, 500 slash line for the entirety, but you don't need this guy to. Like if the slash line is 270, 330, 450, like you'd be thrilled with those numbers, given the versatility, given the speed, all those types of things. And so he's been fantastic, which this leads to the question that everybody is asking, specifically Hawaiian Kira. She says, Hyeseong Kim is hitting 400. Would you play him every day and where? He is performing better than expected. What should the Dodgers do about this guy that can play a bunch of different places and seems to be justifying being included in the lineup every single day?
Yeah, it probably doesn't make sense for him to play every day, but I think it makes sense.
And why not?
I think because at that point you have to sit more regularly one of Edman, Teo, Paez, or
You're going to say it. Conforto. There it is. People are waiting for that word to come out of your mouth. Let me just, I'll just pop in real quick.
Yeah.
Kim has had the success he has. It's worth pointing out that they have limited his exposure to left-handed pitching. Now, he has 2 at-bats against lefties. It's worth pointing out he has 2 hits, and one of those 2 hits is a home run. Okay, so, but all I'm saying is the Dodgers, whether you believe them to be smart or not smart, I'll leave that up to you, have decided that this guy's best chance of succeeding is strictly against right-handed pitching. And as soon as they get a lefty in there, they have taken him out. And so will his offensive numbers dip if he sees way more left-handed pitching than he has? Potentially. But I'm just offering this not as a defense. Please hear this. I'm not offering this as a defense. I'm simply suggesting this is how they have handled it. Now, he hasn't played every day against righties either. We can get into that. But when you say maybe he shouldn't play every day, the Dodgers by all accounts, seem to agree.
Yeah. I think he should play more than the Dodgers are playing him. Let
100%.
me be clear there. I think if there's a righty on the mound, he should play.
Yeah.
And so when I say not every day, if there's a lefty, look, part of his success has been that they haven't overexposed him to lefties, and they're putting him in positions where they think he's most capable of succeeding. That's understandable. With that, I think he is starting to earn a little more grace there and say, like, look, if he's already playing in the game, they bring in a lefty, and it's not a super high leverage situation, let him hit.
Yeah.
Let him hit. Let him play. But yeah, if they play 7 games in a week and they face 2 lefties, he should be starting 5 of those games.
Yeah, totally agree.
And you have to throw in Conforto's name in there, whether we want him in that lineup or not, because he's going to be in the lineup. The Dodgers they continue to tell us this. They're not lying to us on that front. They are telling us they're going to play Michael Conforto. And so understanding that, then I think the more Kim plays, then the more juggling there is with those other 4 guys. And so, at any given time, look, Teo takes one of those days off or 2, that could lead to Kim starting, and the outfield shuffling, happens there. Conforto sits, the same kind of thing. So, yes, I think he needs to be playing more. I think he needs to be playing against righties every time that they get the chance. I think he's earned that. You want a guy to come in and produce and force his way into the lineup. He's done that. There's no doubt about it. He's done that. And his defense in the infield has been good. And his defense in center field has been surprisingly more serviceable than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of what has led to, I think, the situation that we're talking about is they also view Conforto as a splits guy that they don't want facing lefties. And so the problem is you can't platoon the 2 guys that we're talking about.
Right,
and
exactly.
Everybody knows where I stand on Michael Conforto. I still believe that at some point he's going to figure it out. I was about to make a joke about how he has hits in 3 of his last 4 games, and I was going to leave out the part that it was 1 hit in 3 out of the last 4 games, but neither here nor there. The batting average, Anthony, is soaring way above 170 now. Maybe not way above, but I think it's above 170 now. It's at 170. It's at 170. So, but look, the way Kim is playing, as much as I believe Michael Conforto is going to figure it out, I don't think those 2 things are mutually exclusive. And what I mean by that is you can believe that if Michael Conforto had a longer runway, he might figure it out. Nobody does except for me, but I still believe that. And also say, but if Hyeseong Kim is the real deal, you're better off with Hyeseong Kim figuring it out and being the real deal than Michael Conforto. Because what it does is it sets your defense. We finally move Andy Pages out of center field to a corner spot where he is way better. And I'm with you. I don't think Hyeseong Kim is the answer in center field. They seem to be playing him there instead of Edman because of Edman's ankle. That makes total sense.
Makes sense.
But like Kim being good, gives you another element to the lineup, which is speed, something at the bottom of the order that can manufacture some runs a little bit. He offers you a better defensive alignment. Conforto's not any good in left field. You could argue pretty easily, I think, that Kim is a better center fielder than Conforto is left fielder already.
Yes.
And so I think even as a guy who believes that Conforto, if given an opportunity, would figure this out, I'm with you. I think Hyeseong Kim should be playing 5 days a week. And maybe it's not 7 days a week, but maybe it's 5 days a week. And you're saying, okay, Teo gets a day here. Pages gets a day here. Tommy Edman gets a day here. And then he's playing all the other days in place of Michael Conforto. So that's how I would handle it moving forward. The question is, and you brought it up, do we actually think there's any chance that the Dodgers will do this? They have told us so far that they have not been willing to go there. But at some point, the guy goes 1 for 2 with a triple today. At some point, they kind of have to take this seriously, right?
I would think so. Think so. It's been a long enough sample now. There's a large enough sample that this isn't just a fluke. Again, you said it earlier. We don't expect that slash line to stay where it's at. Yeah. But he's shown enough, I think, to say, like, okay, he can be competitive and successful as a rookie in the big leagues, playing more regularly now.
Yeah, totally. And again, I just like the way that it sets everything else up for them defensively. I think that matters. Hector with the super chat. Kim is a younger Tommy Edman with speed. He needs time playing center field to become more valuable. I don't think he's great in center field. I want to make that clear. I actually thought that I think it was a double that Kershaw gave up in either the first or the second inning. I thought that was Kim's fault. It looked like he could have gotten there, but he had no idea how to interact with the right fielder and whose ball it was. And so he slowed up and the ball landed. Maybe I'm overthinking that one. But that said, like he hasn't looked like Andy Pages in center field. And I know somebody's going to throw a defensive stat, but anybody who's watched defensively what Pages has looked like at his worst out there, we haven't seen that from Kim. And we know he has the speed, which at the very least, it's like speed masks a whole bunch of crap in center field. So I would have no problem. And I had an issue trotting Andy Pages out in center field early in the year. Right now, given what I've seen, I don't have a problem with Kim in center field.
Yeah, neither do I. I think he's, like I said earlier, more serviceable than I thought he was going to be. He's got a better arm than I thought he had from there. Yeah. And I think the more innings he has out there, the more comfortable he is, because I think he has a really high baseball IQ too, and a really good feel for the game. And so I think the more time guys like that get out of position, the more they're going to figure it out. Like some guys like Pages, I just don't think he's not cut out for that. Yeah. And so you can put him out there all season long. He's not going to be great in center field. I think Kim has a chance to be a pretty solid center fielder given enough innings. And not that he's their long-term solution there, but I think that he's a guy who you throw him out there in game one in the NLDS, I don't have an issue with that by that time. You know what I mean? Like if Pages is out there, we're like, man, please don't hit a ball right at him.
Yeah. I'm with you. And by the way, I think Kike coming in, Kike looks better than all of them in center field. He at least looks a little more natural. So I think that's why we've seen Kike is lefty and defensive upgrade kind of combo. And Kike's another one who his playing time, which hasn't been much, rightfully so, would be impacted. And look, for anybody asking what happens to Miguel Rojas, then I've made my feelings clear about where I think Miguel Rojas should be playing baseball, and it doesn't start with LA or a D. Lucas, why have replay New York? You suck. Jeff and Ant, you rule. Can we talk about the Mookie Betts ground out where the guy was like 3 inches off the bag? Mookie was convinced he was safe, and then allegedly there wasn't enough information to overturn that. That was insane.
The Cardinals thought they got the call wrong.
Yeah.
Like insane. Typically when a team is pretty confident in that, and it's the third out of the inning that the call is correct, they walk off the field and they force the umpires to bring them back out.
Crazy.
They stayed out there. I think everyone in the stadium saw that replay and went, okay, the Dodgers just scored another run. And how you come back after what we all saw and say, oh yeah, he's still out. Oh, that was my first thought. Why are we even doing replay?
Yeah. What's the point? I'm with you. Okay, let's hit Tony Gonsolin real quick. Headed to the injured list with, quote, forearm discomfort. He is the 20th Dodgers player to land on the injured list this year, the 17th pitcher. They now have 14 players on the injured list as we speak. He's coming off Tommy John surgery, now has right forearm discomfort, as I mentioned. He also missed the start of the season with a back injury. There are a few phrases, Anthony, that might as well be the beginning of baseball horror films. Forearm discomfort is one of them. Is there any reason for us to believe that this isn't going to end as badly as many of us are assuming it will?
I was like, can this happen again in such a short period of time? Like I started Googling that because I'm with you. Like anytime this happened with Evan Phillips, anytime I hear that, my mind,
by the way, ended up out for the season. So
my mind immediately goes into see you at best in a year.
Yeah, at best.
And I think we're probably done seeing Gonsolin this season.
Yeah.
This sort of seems to be the Dodger way, and like, let's see if Russ heals it, and then the guy will get to playing catch or whatever, and there's more discomfort, and then we hear later on in a month that he's going to have surgery, and so I really hope this is not that, but boy, it's hard to ignore, those keywords, like you said, because when it's a guy with his history and that's the thing that's keeping him out, typically rest doesn't cure that.
Yeah. And again, coming off of Tommy John surgery, and the velocity, normally you see a velocity dip. We didn't really see that with Gonsolin. In fact, the velocity had actually been up since sort of before the surgery. So maybe, hopefully, it's just the working through process of coming back from Tommy John surgery, and it is just a rest thing. Again, we don't want to totally jump to conclusions, but we are Dodgers fans and we have seen this movie before. So it's not totally unreasonable, I should say, to jump to those conclusions.
And the thing that, is just so deflating about this too, is that they slow played him.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier with some of these other guys. In his comeback, they slow played him because they didn't, quote unquote, need him. They weren't so desperate.
He could have been available last season.
Right.
He at the end of the season, they could have brought him back. They decided not to. So
they even slow played him coming into this season, right? He didn't start in the rotation. And so even with all of that, for this to still come up it's disappointing.
Yeah. Elbow discomfort, by the way, is Matt Moreno just mentioning that it's elbow discomfort with Gonsolin. So I could have sworn I saw forearm discomfort, but there you go. So elbow discomfort is, I guess, the official line on Tony Gonsolin. So, all right. Big series. Let's shift gears here a little bit, Anthony. I'm not sure if you knew this, but there's a big series coming up this week against the team from down south, the San Diego Padres. It's the first time these two teams are going to match up in 2025. The first time since the NLDS, in which, in case you forgot, the Dodgers beat the Padres. The Padres come into this one having lost 3 of their last 5, Anthony. But what are you looking forward to in this one between the Dodgers and Padres?
I'm looking forward to the bats getting going. I think, the Dodgers don't have the most favorable pitching matchups lined up right now. I think it's May, possibly bullpen, and Robleski against them. But I think if the bats can get going, it doesn't matter. I really think that. I think it just doesn't matter. I think this offense can be too overpowering for whatever the Padres have available, because they got some guys out too. But I think if they can get that going, you see, I think you look at these first couple of games, maybe the way that we saw them perform against the Yankees. This is how good this team is. When they're right in that way. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for Padre fans to be annoying about this, because this is their World Series in June. And I think it'd be to win 2 or 3 out of these, out of these 3. I think just goes a nice. It does a service, I think, for the fan base as well, to say, like, beat the Yankees, beat the Padres, even though they're sort of middling a bit. For the last couple of months, they still have what it takes to beat these kinds of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned May, question mark, and Robleski are the 3 current projected starting pitchers. The Dodgers could go bullpen game. It is worth pointing out that that game will be on June 10th. Bobby Miller last pitch on June 4th. So I imagine that is the backup plan at the very least. If Dustin May doesn't give them length, or for whatever reason they need to make another roster move, I suppose it could be Bobby Miller. But we can all agree, Anthony, that May, Bobby Miller / bullpen game, and Justin Robleski is not exactly the 3 starting pitchers you want to be heading into any series with. To your point, if they're going to win these games, it's going to be because of the offense. It's not going to be because of their pitching, which is good news, because on the other side, you're going to see Nick Pivetta, who's been good, Dylan Cease, who's a nice sounding name, and Randy Vasquez, if you're familiar with his game. But Dylan Cease, you might see on the box score and say, oh man, we got to face Cease. He's allowed 3 earned runs in 4 consecutive games. He has not been good this year. Vasquez, an ERA in the high 3s. So it's not exactly like, even though the names may sound more familiar on the other side and the pitching advantage surely will go to the Padres, you could make a case in all 3 of these games. They aren't necessarily as formidable as it might seem on the surface. Yeah,
I don't think anyone in that rotation, who they'll be facing, like, scares you and oh yeah, they'll definitely shut this lineup down. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. And that's not to say that somebody might not come out and throw a gem, but I think, like, looking at it, there's no, like, definitive, oh yeah, that guy's, he's going to just kill them. They have no chance. So look, I think that, if they can have a breakout series here, I mean, they're quite capable of winning 3 of these.
Yeah. That was going to be my last question for you on this front is what's your prediction? The Dodgers go into this series with a 1-game lead in the division. It's 2 wins and the same number of losses as the Padres. as you go, this series is going to be in San Diego. So knowing that they've got to travel to San Diego for all three of these, that they're going to be at a pitching disadvantage in all three of these, how confident are you that they get 2 out of 3, or as you alluded to, maybe even sweep?
Yeah, I'm predicting 2 out of 3.
Okay.
Two Dodger wins here. I think the key for that pitching staff too, like we talked about the offense, but I think for some of those other guys is keeping Machado and Tatis in the ballpark.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think that if those guys get going, like we've seen them go sometimes against our pitchers, things could get ugly like that. They can snowball a game on you. I think if they can keep those guys in the yard, it changes the dynamic of that offense.
Yeah. Dodgers, by the way, on DraftKings right now, -130 to win the series. And May versus Pavetta, the Dodgers are -120. The Padres are basically even money. So Dodgers favored to win the series, and Dodgers favored to win tomorrow as well. So it's worth pointing out. So it's the easy way out. But give me 2 out of 3. Did you pick a number? How many you think the Dodgers win? Did you say 2? Okay.
2 out of 3, yeah.
So we both say 2. Let us know what you think in the comments below. I have a feeling we have a few people that might guess 3, and there might be some people that guess 0. Who knows? So, all right, let's get to some questions. If you've got those all caps questions, throw those in the chat. We got about 5 or 10 minutes left in here. All caps questions, and we will get to some of those again. The Dodgers 1-game lead in the National League West as we currently sit here today, heading into a big series against the Padres. It's worth pointing out, by the way, that this gauntlet of a schedule that the Dodgers are in the midst of does not end with a trip to San Diego, because then they come home for 3 against the Giants and then 4 more against the Padres. So 10 games left on this gauntlet that I would describe it as 7 of the 10 at home, which is the good news for the Dodgers. JP says, why does it take Robert so long to see the obvious? Why sub Kim instead of Conforto in the later innings? What did you think? I mean, I mentioned that Kike is an upgrade defensively in center field. I think you could make the case Kike would be an upgrade in left field as well. So what do you make of Kim being the guy who's pulled early today and not Conforto?
Yeah, there have been a couple of times where that's happened, and I did not understand the logic behind it, because Kim and Kike allow you to move things around a little bit, and that includes one of Kike being in left field. And so if you're doing it later in the game, I guess I sort of don't understand, if you're doing it for defensive reasons, why Conforto stays in and Kim comes out. So yeah, I'm with JP here. Like, that one isn't always obvious as to why Roberts is doing that. I don't have a better answer aside from I'm wondering the same thing.
Yeah. Back to back goes, would you sell the farm, including Roki, for Paul Skeens?
Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Skeens feels like as close to a sure thing of a prospect as you could find, right? Like, I mean, I don't like selling the farm for anybody, but if it was going to be anybody, it would probably be Skeens. And look, you wouldn't want to give up Roki Sasaki, but you got to do what you got to do if Skeens is there. Although neither of us is predicting that will happen. El Shiva says Emmett Sheehan to join the Dodgers in June sometimes. Made his second appearance rehab start with Oklahoma City yesterday. Another impressive performance. Still up to only 3 innings is the caveat. So it's June 8th, Anthony. Do you think in the next 3.5 weeks that Emmett Sheehan can work his way back to Los Angeles?
I think it's probably a post All-Star break debut for him. One, I don't think that he'd be built up enough in June for the Dodgers' comfort. And then I think you get into July, and then the All-Star break is coming right there. And so I think they would just push it out until after that.
Yeah. I'm probably a little more optimistic if he's already at almost 60 pitches, 3 innings. I think with the way pitchers are today, if the Dodgers feel like they could get 4, maybe 5 out of Emmett Sheehan in the next 2 weeks, they might take it.
That's a good point. Yeah, if they feel they can get 4 innings out of him, you're right. They may pull him up. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to change my answer, because that's a really good point. I think if that's what they're looking for, he probably comes up before the break.
Yeah. NS wants to know, do I get crap for wearing an LA hat in Oregon? I am shocked how many Dodgers fans there are everywhere that I go. So in Oregon, I'm safe because there's also not a baseball team here. So my Mariner friends couldn't care less. And there's some Giants fans just because of the Bay Area proximity. But yeah, I get more compliments than I do criticism. That's for sure. Speaking of the Giants, Jedi Engineer, do you think the Giants take the final wild card this season? Are you buying them as a possible wild card team, Anthony?
No, no, I don't think they can hit enough to sustain that. And I think as they get into more games with teams like the Dodgers, I think they sink a little bit. I think probably the wild cards, you'll get one out of the West, and I think the East looks like is another division that's probably going to put multiple teams in. So I would look there first. I think the Giants. I think their pitching's okay, but I just don't think they can score enough.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, the Mets, Cubs, and Dodgers currently winning divisions. Padres, Giants, and Phillies are the 3 wild cards. Cardinals a game back, Brewers 2.5, and then the Reds 4.5, the Diamondbacks 6. So, I mean, realistically, my gut is like, come on, this isn't for real. But I look at that. I mean, Padres, Phillies, Cardinals, Cubs, Mets, Dodgers, those feel like the 6 teams I would pick if you were asking me to pick which 6 teams make the playoffs. But you could make a case that the Giants are probably 7th on that list of 6 teams, and then the Brewers 8th. So they're probably more in the mix than I would think. The Diamondbacks, Corbin Burns being out, I had picked the Diamondbacks as a team that would finish ahead of the Giants. But given the Burns news and just what that must do from a psyche perspective, maybe that's misguided. So on with this question. Is the Dodgers slow playing arm strategy backfiring? The arms like Gonsolin are getting hurt regardless. How do you see and expect Shohei to be? What do you expect Shohei to be like given how other arms have turned out? I don't think Gonsolin's injury is at all related to them asking him to do more because other guys are hurt. If anything is related to them slow playing, it's how many starts we've had to see from Justin Robleski and bullpen games and Bobby Miller and those types of things. So I don't think it's adding to the injured list, Anthony, my view.
Yeah, I don't think the slow play is contributing to guys getting hurt again. They haven't done a lot of this. I think the Ohtani plan was set during his courtship. I don't think that was like a thing where they were so, adamant about doing. I think that was probably part of all of that entire dance. The Gonsolin thing, they were flirting with the idea of bringing him back last year, decided that it probably wasn't the wisest thing. So there was that. And then I think with like Snell, Glasnow, Roki, like all of this stuff,
yeah,
I think all it is them thinking that they have enough coverage just to get them to a certain point. And more than the slow playing backfiring, I think all the previous injury history in the recent past is leading them to say, you know what, we're so unsure about this. Let's just get them right to the brink of when we think we're going to need them and need them to start gearing up for the postseason, and we'll bring them back around then.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Again, I think it's just going to be more of, I can't believe this guy is starting for the Dodgers than it is, oh, so-and-so got hurt or that kind of a thing. So, all right. I was waiting for our guy, David, to throw in a food question here, and he did not throw in a food question. Maybe we'll give him some time. I did have a food question for you. Okay. And again, apologies to, folks that we're going to do a food question here. So if you need to log yourself off, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and get ready for a big week ahead. But my food question for you is, I was on dad duty. My wife was out hanging out with a friend. And so I took the girls and we needed cereal. That was on the list of food items that were not required, I would say, according to my wife's standards. But from my perspective, I was like, hey, fun field trip. We're going to the grocery store. We're getting some cereal. And my wife, of course, rolls her eyes because I come home with like 4 boxes of cereal. And I'm like, well, I mean, we're going to sample some things. Like, they've never tried this. They've never tried that. We gotta mix it up. And so here's my question for you, Anthony. If you're going to the grocery store to get yourself a box of cereal, maybe 2 boxes of cereal, what's Anthony Witrado bringing home for himself?
Yeah, I think we've had this one before. If I'm going like sugary, let's have some fun cereal.
Yeah.
I like Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. That's a go-to for me.
Okay.
What else? I don't do a lot of sugary cereals anymore. You know what I do enjoy is like the first like 5 bites of like a fresh bowl of Frosted Flakes.
Oh yeah. No, seriously. Before it gets soggy,
Yeah,
it's elite.
that
Then it
is
goes south.
that's right up there with like last meal kind of stuff for me.
I like it. I love Captain Crunch. I don't love the berries though, so we're gonna
Okay.
veer there. Some people have said it. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is probably my goat. I'm a Lucky
Yeah,
Charms guy as well.
I like
I
Lucky Charms too.
introduced I I had to like appease my wife a little bit, so we did cinnamon. I think it was Life, Cinnamon Life or Cinnamon Checks. I can't remember, but it was a
Okay.
cinnamon flavored, like sort of halfway. We weren't all the way in on just like 80 grams of sugar per serving.
Yeah.
And then we did apple cinnamon Cheerios, which is underratedly one of my favorite cereals. So the
Okay.
girls got to try
Nice.
that. So my 4-year-old likes the apple cinnamon Cheerios. The other two like the cinnamon. And then we did honey bunches of oats. That's like my every day. I could eat honey bunches of oats and not feel terrible for myself.
Okay, so I said about the sugary stuff when I want to get after it that way. I also throw like the first 5 bites of Fruity Pebbles in there too.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, my adult cereals are Honey Bunches of Oats and Raisin Bran.
Golly, Raisin Bran?
You know what? Like my dad, I think this is a. I've been groomed to like Raisin
Passed
Bran.
down from generation to generation.
Exactly. My dad was like when he would eat a bowl of cereal at 8 or 9 o'clock at night when I was growing up, it would be Raisin Bran. It was his favorite, and so I
Yeah.
just always grew up like, yeah, Raisin Bran's pretty good, and I still like it. So yeah, Raisin Bran and Honey Bunches of Oats. Those are my my adult cereals.
Okay. I like granola, which I mean, I live in Oregon, so go ahead. The jokes will write themselves. But I think a good honey granola, maybe some raisins in. I'll mix some raisins in there. Is fantastic. So
When I
okay,
was when I covered the Brewers, I went through a stretch where I was eating a lot of Kashi cereal.
okay,
And that was strictly because of my relationship with Gabe Kapler.
okay.
He would have his own boxes of Kashi cereal in his locker.
Okay.
And I was like, we talked about it one day, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it. And then I bought it for like a year, and that was what I was eating as cereal. I don't do that anymore, but it was a phase.
Okay, we have some rapid fire ones. Ella Shiva, would you ever try garlic ice cream? She went to a garlic festival.
Yeah, in Gilroy, I've had some before. It's fine. I wouldn't go out and like buy it, but it's fine. It's better than it sounds.
Okay. Yeah, I love garlic all things. I'm not sure I could get there. With Salt and Straw, which I guess is now a chain that's all over. It started in Portland. They do weird flavor ice creams. Not necessarily my jam. Iris wants to know best kids meal: nuggets, mac and cheese, spaghetti, peanut butter and jelly.
Mm.
What's the best kids meal? I'm going nuggets personally.
Yeah.
Chicken tenders.
I'm leaning nuggets. I love pasta, so spaghetti. Also, like when my 2.5-year-old eats spaghetti, it's like it's just constant entertainment because
Oh
she
yeah, I
tries
bet.
to roll it up and like she does. She goes for the whole nine. I guess if I had to choose, I'm probably taking the nuggets.
Okay. Mixelflix says, do you rinse spaghetti noodles after or not?
Uh,
I think you're supposed to you're supposed to, after they come out of the
when
boiling
straining-
water, you're supposed to rinse cold water, right?
Yeah. So I guess I've never really considered it rinsing, but it is. Yeah. So I'll strain them, put them in the strainer, and then as the water is draining, I also turn on the faucet,
Okay.
the cold water, and I kind of run them both under that. So yeah, I guess I do that.
I don't know. I don't think about these things. Probably not would be my answer. Okay. Oh, Donnie boy. Have we discussed opinions on cottage cheese? Are you a cottage cheese guy?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm out. You could I hate when my wife tells me she doesn't like something because it's a texture thing. Cottage cheese is a texture thing for me. The idea of cottage cheese, I'm sure I would like it. Honestly, I probably would like it, and I'll just never get there mentally.
Yeah.
So, Lucas, we'll close with this. He said, we never heard your high school baseball story that week. That's just true. I teased this story and then never got to it. So my local high school was playing in the state semifinals, and they were playing a team from Central Oregon. And the team from Central Oregon has a kid named Slater DeBrun, who is like a first round MLB prospect. And Corbin Carroll is the comp. There's 3 kids from the state of Oregon who are all in high school, who are all like fringe first rounders. They also had a D1 pitcher who was throwing low 90s, and they beat the team that I root for. So that sucked. But it was interesting to me because I texted a friend. I'm like, yo, I'm going to get to see this guy play. And he's like, I wonder if he stands out. And it is kind of crazy that like baseball is such a funny sport. He played center field. He came up to the plate 4 times. He got 1 hit. He walked once. He got hit by a pitch once. and made an out the other one. But like, it's so hard to stand out in one baseball game as a position player was kind of my takeaway. Like, unless he'd hit like a ball 500 feet, I don't know what I was expecting to see from this guy, who, again, is probably going to be a top 20 to 30 pick in the MLB draft. But I just was shocked. Like, yeah, I mean, he has the body type, but if you did not tell me which guy it was, I'm not sure I would have guessed it was him. That was what was funny to me. And that's not even a knock on the kid.
Yeah. It's harder for position players to like in a high school basketball game. Yeah, you're gonna know who that guy is typically, right? Yeah. Like in baseball, if you're not a pitcher, though, it is tougher. Scouts have always talked to me about, they look at swing path, at bat path, bat speed, hand speed, that kind of obvious stuff, and then also like if a guy might go for 4, right, on the day that scout goes to see him, so they'll look at things like how high does he hit his fly balls or pop ups, like stuff like that. Like, and they'll look at those things as a way to scout a guy.
Yeah. And by the way, David Sabatini, whose last name I might add is Sabatini, says, don't rinse your noodles because the starch is what the sauce adheres to. So he said, absolutely not. So
I'm done running the water when I strain now, David.
Yeah. So all the people rinsing your noodles, his last name is literally Sabatini. So if you want to argue with him about how to eat noodles, then to each their own, I suppose. So folks, we appreciate you joining us on a Sunday night. Again, it was Kershaw Day. He pitched great. The Dodgers won. What an unbelievable Sunday. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your week. We will be back this week on Tuesday. Bruce, I keep calling him Bryce. Bruce and I will be back on Thursday. And then, of course, next Sunday as well. So check out DodgerBlue.com. We will be covering the Padres games from San Diego. So stay right here. If you're not already subscribed as we head towards 100,000 subscribers, please do that. Spread the news. We'll have all the post-game content right here on Dodger Blue 1958. And, of course, check out DodgerBlue.com for game write-ups and all the latest breaking news. That is Anthony. I'm Jeff. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. Go Dodgers. And, yes, still champs.